Marshall in the middle.
I'm here with the general. It's going to be
Hey.
exciting. It's going to be exciting. So let me do this thing, sir. Yeah. So, hey, this show is sponsored by Penny A. Cox, Esquire, for all your attorney needs. If the popo's chasing you, call Penny. She will get you squared away. So, what's going on, sir? You don't need the popo. Don't need a lawyer, do you? Because I can get you a good one if you need one.
No, I grew up. My mom and dad were both cops. I was afraid to do anything when I was a teenager because my dad told me, he goes, if I ever bust a party or some place where there's a bunch of teenagers and you're there, you're dead meat. So if I saw a big bonfire going somewhere or a bunch of teenagers running around, I can't stay here. No, I'm not staying. So.
One of the interesting things about seeing our generation now that we're kind of grown up and looking back on it, the threats from our parents were real. I mean, they would they would have buried us somewhere, and because of those real threats that started early, like when your dad said, "You do this, I'm gonna whoop your butt," and then all of a sudden you got your butt whooped. Later on, there was some real ramifications to what you were talking about. Right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was afraid. They had I mean, he didn't beat me or anything like that. I was just afraid. I mean, when he spoke, I listened. They had there was a couple of times I'm out with other friends riding around in cars and we'd get pulled over for whatever reason and they'd be looking at driver's license. They'd look at mine and they go, "You CJ's boy?" And I went, uh uh yeah. And then, well, you guys aren't supposed to be in this parking lot or whatever. Oh, okay. I My dad knew in 10 minutes anything I was doing in town because they would call him. They call on the radio. They call him on the phone. I mean, we didn't have cell phones back then, or he'd been calling me. But uh, he caught me one night. We were flying down the highway and came across an overpass and to turn around and go back down the highway the opposite direction. And him and my mom are sitting in that restaurant looking at his pickup truck with his name. And back then, he had names on the sides of the truck. You had to have that on there. And he saw his pickup truck go flying by and I got home and that night and he goes, "Saw you tonight." Where? Oh, well, we were just out. No, I saw you. I saw you out in the county, by whatever the name of that restaurant was. And I went, "Hey, you couldn't do anything." So.
There was surveillance cameras before there was surveillance
Oh yeah,
cameras.
yeah.
So where did you grow up? What state?
Missouri. That's where I live now. In fact, I can show you out the window. We live on Lake. We live down Lake of the Ozarks. I'm about. We kind of went to this area because I grew up I was born in St. Louis. And my formative young child years were there. It's a rough place. And my dad became a cop and moved to St. Charles because less likely to get killed in St. Charles. We moved across the river, and so I started school. By the time I was in school, I lived in St. Charles, which is just across the Missouri River from St. Louis. And then I grew up there. Went to St. Charles High School and still got friends up there. I got some friends that never left. They're like, "Oh man, there's a high school football game this Friday night," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's great. Glad you guys are still there, still going." So, but I grew up there, and then when we retired, my wife's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is like sub-zero 6 months of the year, or at least off of Lake. They lived right off Lake Michigan up there. And she goes, "I don't want to shovel like that for the rest of my life." But we moved to Missouri and you still got to shovel a little bit. But we figured all our kids, I got 4 daughters, and every one of them either were in the military or married to it. And so they were still all attached to that when we retired. And I said, "Hey, if we kind of centrally locate in the middle of the state, two of them, my oldest daughter and her husband are MPs, so Leonard Wood's right down the road. And so eventually they're going to fly back by here." So I said, "Hey, if if we kind of centrally locate, we live on the lake, we get a boat and dock and a wave runner and some stuff. The grandkids will want to come visit us. And because my kids never wanted to visit my mom because she moved back to St. Louis after my dad died, and it was like, oh, you can't go out after dark. No, you can't even go outside. So, but we figured they'd come, kids would come here and want to spend time with us. And actually, three of the girls moved here after we settled down. Three of the girls moved here, and two of them are still in this area. So the other ones, jobs took them, and one of our daughter and her husband works for the Navy. I don't know, Navy, and so the rest were all associated with the Army. So my wife is an Air Force vet. I better mention that. She's in there looking at me. She was an Air Force vet.
I
That's why
never I never knew that. Y'all were such a strong team. I never knew she was prior service.
she did 10 years, and she was a registered nurse in the Air Force. I met her at her first duty station. I was stationed in Alaska, and that's another story. I didn't start in air defense. I'll have to come back around to that. But uh, they sent me to a school down in Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas, and that's where I met her. And I was a second lieutenant. She was there because medical goes up so fast. She was there like 3 weeks, and then she was the first lieutenant. And I went, "Hey, what's the deal?" And then like first year she was in, she was a captain, and I went, "Oh, still a lieutenant." So, uh, but we ended up working out. We couldn't get stationed together. We went through a lot of that. She was 6 months pregnant before we ever lived in the same house together. So, but they eventually Air Force let her go because she's having kids and married, and so that's how we ended up finally getting together. But
So tell me about little John. Were you a baseball player, a football player? Did you like gambling? Did you get in trouble a
uh,
lot? Tell me about that.
never gambler. I grew up kind of small town, and little league baseball was big. I was a wrestler, and I'm still a wrestling coach here with the Pee Wee Wrestling Club here in town, Camdenton Wrestling Club. It's kindergarten through sixth grade wrestling. Well, actually, I think they go to age 14, so it's like 5 to age 14. One of my grandsons is aging out. He went to districts last weekend. Uh, took second place at districts. He's headed to the state tournament this weekend. But it's his last round in the club. But he'll be wrestling in high school next year because they don't let them wrestle. If you're on a school wrestling team, they can't do the club at the same time. So it's just you got to work around all that. So when he ages out, he's my last wrestler in the line. So I probably will not be a coach again after this year. So, but I wrestled. Uh, I played baseball, football, uh, our high school football. We had kind of a rough high school. We couldn't have Friday night football. We lost it halfway through high school for some bad stuff going on after games, and our football stadium always had four policemen, two each with a German Shepherd circling the track during the games, and we ended up having Saturday afternoon football. We lost Friday Night Lights and never came back. I guess they got it back again, but we didn't have it when I was there. So
What position did you play on the football team?
I'm a defensive lineman, defensive tackle. I'm surprised I could still parachute after that. You take a beating, but I liked it.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about like going to the Army. How did that work out? Did you go to West Point? Were you a
Oh, no, no, no,
ROTC
no.
or OCS?
I
Tell
had
me
no
about that.
I had no desire to do West Point. They had two of my daughters went there, oldest and the youngest, and but I went to. I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school because I thought I wanted to go in the Army, and ROTC seemed the best route. I actually went to University of Missouri in Columbia. Mizzou's got a great football program, and I didn't play, uh, but I went to Mizzou, and when I graduated, I actually ended up my first duty assignment was in Alaska in an infantry. So that's how I started off life. And that's, uh, uh, spent my first tour in the infantry. And I don't know, digging foxholes in permafrost is like trying to dig a foxhole in a sheet of concrete. It's doesn't matter if it's June or July. It's about a foot down, you're hitting it. So that's where I went to. I went to airborne school, air assault school, and airborne before I went. And I got up there, and after I did my platoon leader time for a year, they made me the S3 Air of the infantry battalion, and so I was on jump status because in those days each of the battalions had one infantry company that was airborne, and I was in the first and 60th Infantry, and every Charlie company was airborne. So I wasn't airborne as a lieutenant as a platoon leader, but then I got made the S3 Air. So we had I went to jump master school in Alaska. We had, and don't shoot darts at me. We had a mobile training team from Fort Benning came there, and that's who I went to jump master school with at Fort Richardson, Alaska. And I'm telling you, I was like, I can't fail this course. I can't fail. I mean, it was 7 days a week. Even they had like on Saturdays and Sundays, you could go over and the instructors would work with you, and you could just sit there and do JMPI, 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 JMPI over and over all day, and that's what I did. So I spent every waking moment doing JMPI and door jump commands and all this stuff, and so we graduated. We did all of our airborne stuff in the aircraft. Alaska didn't have a lot of aircraft. We only had C-130s, uh, but we all had to jump a seaweed bag with 2 mortar rounds in it and stuff like that. I mean, those things are heavy. They're really heavy. And but that's where I went to jump master school, and then I was on jump status the whole time I was the S3 Air. Did a lot of air assault stuff, but Fort, I guess it was Elmendorf had 4 C-130s. One was always in maintenance, so they really only had 3. And so at any given time, our battalion could get 2 C-130s for jumping, and you had to jump, to keep your status. You're jumping in 30 below zero temperatures, or in the summer, and mosquitoes are chasing you out the door. So, but that's where I went to jump master school, and then after I left Alaska, I ended up in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, says airborne, but it's really air assault. So I spent 5 years there, and it was all the way to battalion command before I got back to an airborne unit. I got to brag. If you want me to steer off of this, but I got to brag as I had 16 jumps when I got there, and I had a couple of jump master jumps, and then what helped me, and we continued at least while I was there. I don't know who the jump master of the year was. Maybe it was you. I don't know. Uh, but whoever the jump master of the year was, Sergeant Major Patterson attached him to me, and he took me someplace over in the old I guess the old division area, and he just worked for me sun up to sundown, making sure I could do everything I was supposed to do, because I hadn't been a jump master in like 9 years, and all the JMPI, because the equipment had changed, parachutes and everything were still the same, surprisingly, but make sure I could do everything, and that kid stayed with me. That young man stayed with me until he was satisfied that I could be a jump master on a plane, and then he let Patterson have me back to be the battalion commander. So, and
It's really neat how the airborne community wanted to take care of its own, right? We wanted to make sure that everybody was good. We wanted everybody to succeed. We didn't want any fatalities or anybody hurt. And you never want your battalion commander embarrassed, right? You never want
right.
any of your folks anywhere that you're around as part of your team embarrassed to do the thing. So I've
Right.
heard time and time again how people were taken care of, both NCOs and officers, by
Right.
those that were around them. I say many times that in the 82nd, we grew our own NCOs. We were fed the best officers. The best were picked to show up there. But our NCO Corps, we grew them. Who were the NCOs that shaped you? Do you remember a few?
Oh yeah, I got to go back all the way back to my first platoon sergeant when I was a platoon leader, and I'll go forward. He wasn't airborne. His name was Michael P. Quirk, and I have searched for him on Facebook, and he was older than me, and I'm 67 now, so I don't even know if he's still alive. He's not on Facebook. He's not anywhere, but he kind of did what that Jump Master of the Year did. He started me off. I got to Alaska, and you got to do through some stuff with the brigade. I was in the 172nd Light Infantry Brigade, and that's what it was when I was there. And but they had he took me out. He said, "Hey sir, you're coming with me. Don't worry about the platoon. You're coming with me." He put me in a Jeep and took me to the field. And he spent, because he knew I was a second lieutenant. He goes, "Sir, I don't want you to be like some of these other lieutenants in the battalion." He goes, "You're going to be a good lieutenant. I'm going to make you a good lieutenant." And he took me to the field, taught me how to stay alive in Alaska, winter, summer, taught me how to use all the equipment that we had, all the stuff that had been issued to me. He took me out with maps and a compass, and he said, "This is Fort Richardson." And he goes, "I don't know what you learned in school, but we're just going to go over it, and I want to make sure you can read a map. You can call in coordinates." He taught me how to use a radio. He taught me how to use the equipment in the Jeep I had. And we even set up a tent and how to hook up the Yukon stove. He spent like a week with me, and it wasn't all the time because we had stuff going on back in Garrison. But he taught me all about all the equipment we had and how to be an officer or how to be a lieutenant for these young men that were going to be in. I was in the infantry time; they were all men. Uh, how to be a lieutenant for them, and not do stupid stuff, and not look stupid. And so he was the first guy, Michael P. Quirk. If you're out there listening, I'm looking for you. He really took care of me. And then as I went along, my I had a first sergeant when I was a battery commander at Campbell, and what's his name? I just slipped my head mind because you talked to me about him, but he's a Vietnam vet. That first guy was a Vietnam vet. He was a good door gunner in a Huey in Vietnam. That was his job. He shooting at M60 out the door. My second NCO, first sergeant. I feel bad. I can't remember his name. I do know his name. It's just jumped out of my head. But he. Uh, he did kind of the same thing. He goes, that's first time being a battery commander, and you got a lot more people. And now I'm in air defense. And this is kind of my first air defense unit, and so he knows I don't know anything about air defense. And we had Stinger. I think we started with Red Eye, and then it went to Stinger, and we had the Vulcans. And man, the Vulcans I thought was just the greatest thing ever. We just had towed Vulcans because we're in them first. We nothing SP. And same thing. He made sure that I didn't look stupid. I mean, he took time. He took me aside. He didn't wait for me to do something stupid and then come back and correct me. He guided me, and I listened to him. And because Quirk, he guided me and said, "Hey, this is what I think you should be doing. It's your decision, but I think we should be doing this." And I listened to him, and we were very, very successful uh, when I was at the 101st. Same thing at Bragg. Patterson, because I didn't grow up at Bragg, he was. I think he was a little standoffish at first because I think he had been in that battalion since he was a specialist. And I don't know where Ronnie Patterson is today either. He ain't on Facebook. Uh, I've lost all contact with him. First Sergeant Collier. That was James Collier was my first sergeant when I was a battery commander. He was about 5'2", and he had a gold tooth. I'm going to tell you a story if I got a second here. He would sit there and come in here. Yeah, he'd suck on that gold tooth, and we had his office was the smoking area for the battery because you had to have a designated smoking area, and the platoon sergeants would all go in there and smoke. And you'd open the door and it'd just be like a haze coming out. They'd all be in there smoking because you couldn't smoke any other place in the building. And but he'd call soldiers by. I saw him one time and he goes, "Come in here." He guy just walking by his door. He goes, "Are you a member of the 101st Airborne Division Association?" No, Sergeant Major, I'm not. And he goes, "Well, I need a CQ tonight. You're the CQ." And he goes, he's got another guy standing there. He goes, "You're the CQ tonight, aren't you? Aren't you?" And he goes, "Yes, Sergeant Major. Yes, First Sergeant. I'm supposed to be the CQ." And he goes, "Aren't you a member of the 101st Airborne Division Association?" Yes, First Sergeant, I am. And he goes, "That's why you're off. See the benefits of membership?" And he suck on that gold tooth. And so he goes, that's how he got guys. We had 100%. We had 100% in my battery because he was like, "There's benefits of membership," and he'd get those guys. But anyway, so I get there with Patterson. Patterson, because I didn't grow up in the division. And I came there with 16 jumps, and I had my log. They were all up in Alaska, in or at airborne school and whatever else you had. You came out of airborne school with 5. So I got 11 more in Alaska because I was trying to jump all I could because we didn't jump. They tried to get out about once a month, but when you're working with 3 C-130s and then it might be 2 C-130s and then it might be 1 C-130, we didn't do any helicopter jumps in Alaska back then. It was all on the 130s because we didn't have it. We had the helicopters came from somewhere else. They were up at Fort Wainwright, I think, and they wouldn't fly down there and do that kind of stuff. But they had their own jump company up there, so in 4th and 9th Manchus, so they did their stuff up there because we had the 130s down by us. But Patterson and I got along really well, and I don't know where he is today, but I think he kind of let me do what I wanted to do, but he did guide me, and I spent a lot of time in a lot of first sergeant's offices uh, talking to them. Patterson had been in the battalion since he was a specialist, and I go, how can that even be? And he goes, "You volunteer to go to Korea. You go to Korea, you spend a year, you get a station of choice when you come out of Korea, you come back to Bragg." And I started talking to the first sergeants and they go, "Well, I've never been stationed anywhere else but Bragg and Korea. Never been anywhere else when I left basic training." And uh, Stout came in close to the end of my he came in as one of the first sergeants. I think he was alphabetical first sergeant toward the end of my time as battalion commander. Uh, and I'm trying to think of some of the other guys, but I'd sit in their office, especially if we were going to go out. We'd do a large package week or something. And I'd go over and sit in the first sergeant's office and uh, you know talk to them, see what's going on, things like that. And I kind of let them run their own shows. The battery commanders not as much. I was on them because they're just one step out of a lieutenant position, and I got some guidance. Uh, Patterson actually told me this. He goes, "Sir, the time difference between you as a battalion commander and a battery commander, they've been in the Army like 4 years, maybe 5 at the most. And you're hitting, you know, 15 years. I mean, there's like 10 years of difference in experience. They are going to do stupid. Some of them are going to do stupid stuff because they just don't know any better. And you don't know what unit they came from because none of those captains that I had came from Bragg. They came from all over the place. Uh, but the first sergeants, they lived their whole life there, and the wealth of experience and the knowledge they had, and the ability and willingness to tell you what they think was just amazing. And they were very willing to tell you what they think. So I greatly appreciated the time I spent there. And I left Bragg after battalion command, and I was back 2 years later at Bragg in 108th ADA Brigade. We weren't stationed there, but I was back in the Corps. And and I got to stay an extra year after battalion command. I was a division IG, and Larry Pruitt was the battalion commander then. And he'd have to go down there. Period. I basically tried to stay out of his battalion because it was his battalion, it wasn't mine. And I had to go down there once for something, and he didn't like it. So I kind of, okay. I just sent the NCOs over there, but they're all part of that DRB stuff we had to do every month on who was going on DRB and all the inspections with the IG shop. But I spent an extra year doing that. I went to the War College, and I spent a year in I think it was Germany, and came right back as a brigade commander. So that was the greatest thing, coming back to 108th and at least associated with Bragg. My boss was the DCG of the 18th Airborne Corps, so I tried to spend as much time with him as I could. And we came in. I came into command probably June, and by September, 9/11 happened, and we were spinning up for combat operations. So I spent most of that 2 years either getting ready to going, or getting or winding down when we came back. So uh, that was a great experience. We had great people, great commanders, uh, great NCOs, just an outstanding organization. Now they're
Yeah, we're-
Patriot. It makes me want to. Sorry, it's any Patriot guys out there. I can't believe we well, they were Patriot then too, but it's and I don't know if they're associated back with the Corps or not. They were gone from the Corps for a while, and so anyway, so
it's a very interesting thing to think about how expeditionary we were. Every unit had a different mission set, had a different timetable, had a different thing that they had to do. Some people got set right in place. Some people had to road march hundreds of miles. There's all
right.
kinds of different rules of engagement depending on what they were looking at. It was just amazing. Did you find your time as a commander? Did you find out that you had to make a lot of decisions, or were you just kind of reacting to things most of the time?
Well, for us, are you talking about battalion or brigade with Iraq?
You choose. You choose. You tell me.
I think battalion at Bragg, I'll hit them both. Battalion at Bragg, I kind of, because you're a separate battalion, uh, you kind of get to run your own show. And if you veer off the path somewhere, somebody's going to give you a knuckle sandwich with up higher. But we had good ADCs. Uh, I worked for I had General Swanwick was my boss, and he actually he called me up one day, probably about a year into it, and he goes, uh, all of your battery, I only senior rate like 6 captains, and 5 of them belong to you. And he goes, all the other separate battalions are under the S, which was Brigadier General at the time, Kip Ward. He goes, I think I want to move you under the S so that there's a larger pool of captains to help your guys. Because at battery command or battalion command, he was talking about battalion command too. He said to help. That was at brigade level, but he said I'm just trying to help your guys out so they're in a larger pool of people. But they kind of left us alone. I mean, Swanwick came around, kind of checked on us. Basically, I just kind of reported to him if I needed anything. Uh, Talked to the CG periodically. Uh, Dan K. McNeil came down to the battalion one morning because we had that dining facility at the time. It used to be the replacement. I think it was a replacement battalion, but somehow we ended up either using it or owning it for a while. And Dan K. McNeil, Major General McNeil, came down, and they said, General McNeil's in a he's in a dining facility. So I go running over there, and he goes, "Oh, I'm just checking around." He goes, "I just want." It was like 10 minutes before we closed. He goes, "I'm just looking. I just want some grits." And the mess sergeant's looking at me, and I'm like, Okay, sir. Well, yeah, he goes, I'm just going to wander around and look at stuff. So I go, get that guy some grits. And he goes, sir, we don't have any more. We got no grits. There are no grits. And I go, that's all he wants is grits. I'm like seeing my life pass before my eyes. But uh, so I went and told him, I said, I'm sorry, sir. They're out of grits and we're closing in 10 minutes. You want something else? He goes, no, I only wanted grits. And I went, "Ugh." but uh, but they kind of left us alone. I got involved more with them as the IG. General Petraeus was there then. He would call me on the phone and say, I'm going to pick you up in a van. We're going to look at some company somewhere. He picked me up like once a week and drove me around posted places to look at stuff. And he got me one time. He was in some arms room or something, and some armor was in there. He's got tattoos all over his arm, and he goes, "What do you got all those tattoos on?" He's kind of grilling this kid about his tattoos, and he goes, Colonel Seward and I don't have no tattoos." And I go, uh, uh, "Yes, sir. I have a couple of tattoos." And he looks at me. This is General Petraeus, and I go, "Yes, sir. I got a couple of tattoos." And he goes, "Oh." So, but when we were in brigade, uh, Fort Bliss kind of put your fingers in your pie all the time. They were trying to get us to do stuff, and my answer was always, "Sir, I'm in 18th Airborne Corps. I'm just I'm a tenant here. I belong to 18th Airborne Corps." They tried to get us because we were doing like we had maroon berets in. The guy after me lost them, but I went down there and fought for that at Bragg, and I talked to the CG Corps Commander, and he goes, why do you guys want to be in berets? And I go, sir, we're one of two units not on Bragg. Every unit on Bragg gets to wear maroon berets in the Corps. I said, I have more guys on jump status than that aviation brigade that's on Bragg. They get to wear berets. And I'm at Fort Bliss, Texas with these guys with all these ball hats, and we're in 18th Airborne Corps. I want to bring in berets. And he goes, and the Sergeant Major, it was Sergeant Major England at the time, I think was the Corps Sergeant Major. He was like, and he didn't want to. And I got him to sign a piece of paper, a memo that we typed up that we could wear maroon berets. And I went back to Bray. Of course, I got a lot of legs in 108th Brigade at Fort Bliss, Texas, as you can imagine. But they were like, "Oh, those things are hot. Why do we got to wear those? And ball hat, I got sun visor and it keeps the sun out of here. Why do we got to wear these berets? You're wearing a beret." But they Bliss tried to get us to do like we had when we did parades. I had everybody in berets and their LBE. That's what you wear at Bragg. And they're like, "Oh, you have to wear the full and you have to wear a helmet." And I go, no, sir, that's not the uniform. We're an 18th Airborne Corps, and the parade uniform is a maroon beret and LBE, low bearing equipment. But they let me do it. I just kept saying, "Sir, we're an 18th Airborne Corps, and my boss." But so we went to Iraq, and I found out General Bromberg came to visit me. He was 32nd AA MDC commander, and came down town to my office and said, "Hey, this stuff's we're speeding up for Iraq and stuff, and we're going to have a big conference over in Doha, lay out the air defense plan for the whole operation." And he goes, uh, uh, "I'm thinking we're attaching you to the First Marine Expeditionary Force out of Camp Pendleton." And they don't have Patriot. They're going to be one of the main maneuver units, and they had LAD, which was basically uh, they had Avenger vehicles in their LAD battalion, second LAD battalion, light air defense, light air artillery or something. I'm not sure what the LAD. It was LAAD, but uh, they had a battalion of Avengers. So he said, "You need to go to Camp Pendleton. They're having a planning conference next week." So I went there, met the CG, and he was a winner. He's from St. Louis. That really worked out for me, but in the we got attached to assigned to the first or third Marine Air Wing. We were in this first MEF, third Marine Air Wing, and Major General Amos was my boss. He ended up being after Conway, who was the CG of the MEF. After the war was over, or his part of the war was over, he became the commandant of the Marine Corps. Then Amos was the next commandant of the Marine Corps. So I worked for both of those guys. But we went to the planning conference, and he said, "This is we're already starting to move." They were moving before Christmas, and so we started doing all the stuff at Bliss and getting our stuff up and moving, and we started moving out, and we were in theater by uh, February. We went to the planning conference was before Christmas, and then I think by February we had most of our stuff there, and of course the war started in March. Uh, but the MEF really treated us well. Uh, General Conway, because they don't know anything about air defense, or not really, and he would say, "Hey, just brief your stuff to the three." Uh, every once I'd have to come to him periodic and say, "Hey, sir, you got to decide this or that," and he, what do you think? He would do whatever I told him, asked him, and because I'm only a colonel, he's a 3-star general, and the three was like he was a little he asked a lot more questions, and I'm sure he'd probably back briefing him, but he was uh okay, well, this and it got to the point when we were maneuvering the whole time we moved in Iraq. The Marines, I got called by the second Lad Battalion commander, and he goes, "Sir, they're going to leave us in Kuwait. Can you help me? My guys aren't going to get going to Iraq." Because they're like, "We don't need Avengers, we don't need that." So I talked to Conway and I said, "Hey, can I have that battalion?" He goes, "No, sure. We were just going to leave them in Kuwait. We were going to leave them in Kuwait." They became our security on every convoy. I had 4 Avengers with me every time I moved around the battlefield. With and they had their stingers and stuff that they never used, but they had that 50 cal. And we got hit with snipers a couple of times, and they opened up with that thing, and then the snipers weren't shooting at us anymore. But uh, those Marines, every time we moved, uh, we had stuff. We had the Avengers with us, but he gave us we had a gunship with us, front and back, and they were still flying Cobras. They were flying Cobra gunships. They weren't flying Apaches, and they would fly out in front of us. And if there was anything that looked like something was going to stop that battery moving, or or cause us a problem, they just fired it up. They had those little 2.75 rockets and the guns, the Gatling guns, and they would just eat everything alive in front of us. And they would have engineers get there ahead of us, dig in the positions for the Patriot launchers and things and the radar. We just move into a prepared position until we moved again. And as long as they knew where we were going and when we were supposed to start moving, they did the prep. They'd send the engineers, they prep. They'd send the gunships with us. We had the Avengers with us, and I I, I tell you, we were in combat for quite a period of time, and not one casualty did we have. Not one. Uh, we had guys get hurt from falling off a truck or doing something stupid, but uh, nobody. And we were in the first wave with the Task Force Taro crossing the berm. The I got to tell you a side story. Paris Williams was in my talk, and I love that man. He's the greatest American I know. And he walked in one day and had blood all over him, and I was like, "What? What happened?" Because we're in a perimeter, and he said some guy got shot. He was just walking by, and a kid got shot. Because we would get stuff on that Marine perimeter. We had to go to the berm or go in the stuff, several times. We just start taking fire from the perimeter. But the Marines had these like amphibious things that roll on the ground but also swim, and they're kind of landing craft or assault vehicles. And they had so much firepower on those things They would just eating up the desert. And but I think the one of the exciting nights for us was outside Baghdad. It's dark, and the Marines are firing 155s. You could just it was just a glow in Baghdad from all these rounds, and it went on for like an hour, just nonstop firing from 155s. The whole ground was shaking where we were at, and it was something to see. But I don't even know if I answered the question. I just started telling stories, but
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So when were you at in battalion command at Bragg? What year?
I was battalion commander from 97 to 99, and then I stayed to 2000 as the IG. So I was there for 3 years. Larry Pruitt came in after me. At I came into command in like March. It was an oddity. Bobby Woods was there before me. There was a I was supposed to come to Bragg, but not till June. They did a scramble. One guy going to 10th Mountain, one guy going to 101st, and then one guy going to Bragg. And my assignment officer said, "Sir, you're the only jump master qualified lieutenant colonel that we currently have in the branch that hasn't been to Bragg. You're going to Bragg." And I go, "Perfect." But the guy going, and I don't know their names. The guy going to 10th Mountain got cancer. He popped hot for cancer, and they pulled him off the command list. So it rippled everybody, and I was scared that I wasn't going to get to because I was sitting in a school somewhere. I go, they're going to make me go to 10th Mountain, and there was a big fear of, and the guy going to 101st wanted to go to the 101st. I wanted to go to the 82nd, and I think they pulled the guy off the alternate list or something, but it kind of rippled everybody, and I ended up taking command in like of March of 97. So I came in early. And then I got to stay to June of 99. So I actually got an extra 3 months of battalion command. I was like 27 months. So they got everything lined back up. But there was a fear there for a while because they said, hey, the 10th Mountain guy is uh, that was going to 10th Mountain can't go there. He's got cancer. And so we're looking, just stand by. I was sweating for a few days, still going to Bragg. But so anyway,
So, you're the perfect guy to ask this question to, actually, because I have a theory. Um, I have a theory that airborne soldiers are a cut above non-airborne soldiers. But I also think that sometimes just putting an emblem on somebody and adopting them into the airborne community, either with a tab or with a beret, like you talked about, just doing that upped their performance. Did you notice that being associated with airborne really upped someone's performance? Did you notice that?
oh, absolutely. Bragg has I'll tell you, Fort Bragg has the finest soldiers. They can do anything. They're just airborne, and they march off and do it. You're always going to have 1% of the. There's 1% of every unit. There's a knucklehead in it, but when we put those berets on those soldiers at Bliss, the others, there was like jealousy across the whole post because our soldiers are all walking around in maroon berets, and well, and they just walked a little high, little strong, higher, little straighter. Uh, PT got better. I actually took my staff. We ate the bill. I talked to the Corps about this. I took my battalion commanders, my battalion sergeant majors when I was a brigade commander, and in the primary staff and NCOs. We went to Bragg because we came from Bliss. We flew out there, but there was a conference or something. So, and I took them out on Ardennes for PT, uh, and we ran down Ardennes. We did it every morning we were there, and it was like a class. I go, what what's different about this street than down at Fort Bliss where you're running now? What do you see that's different? And some of them were completely perplexed by that. And I'm like, do you see anybody not in a formation running? No, sir. No. Do you see anybody walking on our dens, which is a death blow from every NCO that sees you? No, no, sir. I don't see anybody walking. That's the difference in this place in Fort Bliss, Texas. This is what you have to instill in your soldiers. We put them in a Maroon Beret, but now you got to raise the standard to them. They're associated with this. Nobody walks on our dens. There's no. I said if somebody's in a cast, because I broke my leg on a jump. I had like four trips to the hospital when I was a battalion commander for different things, mostly sort of minor. But they had. Uh, I said if your leg's in a cast, you're figuring out how you can do PT anyway. If there's not a bunch of guys sitting over in a gym playing basketball. They're not doing that. They're out here running. They're out here with NCO supervision. They're doing this, they're doing that. uh I said if you're in a cast and you can't run, get on a bike. You're not on our dens. You go somewhere else where people can't see you, and where core people are at, because the division is running. And but I said that's the kind of stuff you have to instill upon your soldiers. And I had, we did a briefing for my boss. Uh, he was a deputy commander of 18th Airborne Corps, and I really loved him. He I said, sir, these guys live in an environment down at Fort Bliss, Texas, where it's okay to be, sick, lame, lazy. It's okay, you're okay, and be on profile your whole life. It's just, and I said, there's nothing wrong. Kids get hurt. I said, but they're milking them. I had, we had our first meeting with him. He was a great NCO or officer. He turns around in his chair and he goes, we were briefing PT stats or something. He goes, you know what the problem with that chart is, gentlemen? And he's got my staff. He's got all my battalions, battery commanders, first sergeants, sergeant majors. They're all sitting there in this room. And he goes, that chart's about itty bitty hearts. That's what that's about. Itty bitty hearts. And they're all like, big old eyes looking at him because he's their senior raider or and they're like, oh, oh. He goes, he and I because I told him, he wanted to know how it went, bringing him up to brag, and I said it's an eye opener because they're seeing stuff they don't see at Bliss. I mean, I had a policy in my brigade. I said, you can run together, you can be on profile, you can run together, but you can't walk together. I said, one soldier walks faster than the other soldier. And I said, if you're walking together talking about Friday night and going out into the bars and stuff, somebody's not doing hard enough PT. One of you is slacking. You can't walk together. And we'd run around. I had Sergeant Major Rowland for a while. We'd run around looking for people like that. We had some great stuff with Sergeant Major Rowland. He was phenomenal. But we'd find these guys in and just route them out. We had probably once a quarter. I took the staff officers and gave them a little memorandum notebook with a pen. And I said, all right, this is what you're doing for PT. You're going to run around. You're going to walk through every hallway of every building, walk to you're going to go everywhere and write down the name of every soldier that ain't doing PT. Go through the parking lots. They found kids sleeping in their cars, and stuff. It's just a different mentality. And we put them in berets, though, and we didn't get 100% of them because some of them you just can't. There's weakness everywhere, but they but it changed their their perspective. We had an airborne tab above the 108th patch at that time. I don't know if it was ever authorized. But I think somebody before me did it, and but we did it, and we put them in berets, and there was a change of attitude of just being part of something different at Fort Bliss because everybody else was just the same. You know, they went to the field at Tobin Wells. somebody from Bliss is going to call me and stick a sharp stick in my eye. That ain't going to the field. You know, Tobin Wells in a concrete hard stand, you know, wearing the Gilligan floppy hats. I'm really going to get in trouble here. Somebody from Bliss is listening to me, but those Gilligan floppy hats and eating in a dining facility and sleeping in a bunk in a building, that's not being in the field. So I will tell you, the coming out of Iraq, we are 108th, and it wasn't me. It was people I had working for me. 108th came out of that, you know, without a scratch. I mean, we accomplished everything we went to do. Nobody was injured. Nobody, you know, again, guys doing stupid stuff, fall off a truck or something, got hurt, but no combat injuries, no nothing. And they sent a team from Fort Bliss to interview us, our leaders, and said, how could that be? You know, because everybody else had something happen to them, like 507th Maintenance Company, which was terrible. They had these other things. They said, how could that be? And I go, we got good leaders, and I think the whole thing around it is we did our exercise program at Fort Bragg. We came out there and did exercises. We came out there and did CPXs. We brought our stuff to the field out there, and they would fly. You know, they'd fly you out there. We had combat operations. We were out in the field with the Corps TOC. They weren't doing that stuff with these other brigades. You know, they're sitting at Tobin Wells. And I said, I think our brigade did well because we're an 18th Airborne Corps, and we do stuff with them at Fort Bragg. We go to their exercises, we participate in their programs, and it's just a different mentality. And so, and I got great leaders. So uh, that's how I think it happened. So.
Tell me about getting selected to become a general. That's, look, for me as a soldier, watching you guys get selected and promoted. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance that goes along with generals. But dude, you were loved. We all loved you. You were great. It's neat to see one of the our beloved go up and make great ranks. What was it like for you?
It was uh we did really well in Iraq. General Vane came to see me, and he's not from my world. He's a 40-pound brain rocket scientist, and but he commanded a SHORAD battalion, which most of those guys were all high mad guys, Hawk, you know, Patriot, Nike, Herc. He had been a SHORAD battalion commander. He commanded, I'm not sure what the battalion was, but he was there with, I'm sure they had Red Eye, and I think it was a mech battalion, you know, with, but they had like Chaparral, they had Hawk, not Hawk, but Chaparral, and the Avenger gun the Gatling gun on a
Vulcan.
Vulcan on a track. But, you know, he talked to me when I got back, and I found out later, and it just worked. It worked for me. The president of my board was Dan K. McNeil, my division commander in the 80s, from the 82nd. He was a 3-star. Uh, uh, three of the senior board were all brigade commanders from Bragg. Uh, and and I'm looking at the board membership, and I'm going, because when I did get selected, and Vane's the one that told me. Uh, he said, I can't tell you how you know what happened on the board. He goes, but I can tell you that we're standing up a new double AMDC in Hawaii, 94th double AMDC, and we're looking at you to be the commander. He goes, but I can't tell you how you did on the board. I went, oh, that's kind of how he silently told me. But I found out later from uh, I was at AUSA later on, and one of those guys came up to me, and in fact, he was the guy who was the Secretary of Defense under Biden.
Austin.
Lloyd Austin walks up to me, and he goes, "Hey." He was still in the Army then. I think he was a 3-star, and he goes, well, that star looks pretty good on you. And he goes, I was there. He, he goes, I was there when that happened. And, and I went back and looked at the board membership, and they were all guys from Bragg. I mean, three of the brigade commanders that were there when I was there that we supported with batteries. And Dan K. McNeil was the president of the board. And I had heard, uh, and a lot of it's luck. I'll be honest. There's a lot of good guys that don't make it, but I heard a general come back. I won't say his name because I'm probably in trouble with Bliss already. But he came back from a board and he goes, I just sat through that general's board, and he goes, the only person on the board that knows these air defense guys, they've changed how they do business. This has changed greatly in the last 15 years. He goes, but the only people on that board that know the air defense guy is the air defense guy. And so we're doing a disservice to our branch and our people. And he said, this is what we got to do. So he changed the course of where we were headed on at least getting people visibility, getting them out of Bliss, getting them, out in the maneuver force doing stuff. And because that's where your money's at. I don't know how it is anymore. I've been out for 12 years, 13 years, but the maneuver force was your ticket forward in those days. And I never served a day in the Pentagon. I never served I spent a lot of time in the Pacific, 11 years. And I had another flag officer tell me, he goes, you're never going to get promoted because no one knows who you are. The only people, more sailor, more admirals and Air Force people than Army people. You need to work in the Pentagon. Uh, so I just never did. Not one day. I've been in the building. I'm going, man, I'm glad I never worked here. It is a thankless sweatshop. But people I visited were like, they're having meetings like 8 o'clock at night. And I go, when do you guys get to go home? Well, it's just, I knew a guy that worked on he worked at like the daily briefing. That's all he did. And he was like a colonel. And he said, it's 7 days a week. I'm here at 5 a.m. preparing the brief for the chief of staff of the Army that goes off at like 7:30. And then they give you stuff all day long, and you're getting messages from the world at the Pentagon. And he goes, and then you're preparing the nightly briefing, and you get out of here like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and you're back here at 5 a.m. And he goes, 7 days a week. This is what I do. And I go, oh man, I'm glad I never worked there. Uh, but you know, it is what it is. I had a great career. I spent most of my time in some dirty boot assignment, eating dirt and shooting weapons.
You definitely was an airborne leader for us during our time in battalion in 108th, and we really appreciate the leadership that you gave to us. Tell me about a long night. Do you remember a time when you thought the daylight was never going to come, or that you were worried about something, or maybe you had a soldier or a family member that wasn't doing well or something? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, there was, boy, two things just popped right in my head. The one was back all the way back to Alaska. Uh, the S3 Air, we're doing a nighttime uh, air assault with helicopters. It's 30 below zero, and we set up the LZ, and you're using those beam lights, and we had to take a snow machine. In Alaska they call them snow machines, snowmobile, and we're driving up and down trying to flatten out these areas where they bring these helicopters in. It was me and another kid and an NCO, my air NCO. We worked for like 8 hours trying to get this LZ set up, and we're moving the whole battalion by helicopters that night. And it was a night that never ended. It just never ended. Uh, Helicopters are habitually don't pay attention when some lieutenant's briefing them on what we're doing in the operation, and they're not there when they're supposed to be, and the wrong number of helicopters coming in. My battalion commander, all I had was a Prick 77 radio on my back. He was a tough man. He was uh, Bill Ohl. I don't know if you've ever heard his name. He stood up the Third Ranger Battalion. He's a longtime Ranger. Uh, he was in Vietnam for 7 years. I mean, he's just snake eater, eating nails, crapping thunder, and he was my boss. And his helicopter landed there, and I thought he was gonna kill me because it just seemed like a shambles. And my boss, my S3, who was a major, got between him and me. I'm just first lieutenant, and uh, and he's looking around him at me and looking at him and looking at me. And he turned around and got back in his helicopter and flew off. And the major came over and he goes, I go, oh, sir. And he goes, just stay on the radio. So when he calls you, you answer. And I said, sir, I'm running off. You carry that radio. And when he calls, you answer. And we sorted it out. It was all night. And we got left there. We couldn't get the last couple Akio sleds, me and that NCO. Uh, there was no more room on the aircraft. The last helicopters came and left. My battalion commander showed up. He landed in his little Huey, well, whatever those little observation OH-58, and he goes, "Well, we know you're here." He goes, "Well, we're going to come back and get you," and he flew off. And we had a tent, we had gas, and the Yukon stove, and we set that stuff up. We were there for 4 days, just eating MREs and going, man, it's a dead of winter in Alaska, and I mean there were animals outside and everything. It was just kind of a long night, but a long 4 days, and finally somebody showed up in a truck and get in. Thank you. I go, what if we run out of gas? What if we run out of chow? What if we run out of, and the NCO was like an E7. He's going, sir, don't worry about that stuff here. We're gonna be fine. He was my calming, because I'm like, if we run out of gas, we're gonna freeze. We're gonna so. But we had a kid when I was in Iraq. Uh, his baby toddler died, and I had to tell him, and he it was terrible, and we got all this messages through there. And I went to find him. It took me a couple hours to find him. He was out of one of the battery locations, and uh, I sat him down, told him, and I said, "We're going to fly you back. We're flying you back to Fort Bliss." And he was just like, it was just shock. I mean, he was just sitting there staring off into space. And I think the kid was like 2, and there was some accident in the home. I don't know what, I can't remember the details of it, but I'm the one that had to tell him. And uh, I said, "Hey, get your gear together." I came with the sergeant major. I said, we're gonna take you back, and we'll get you out of theater here." And we never saw you again. I don't know what happened after he got back to Bliss. He never showed back up. But uh, that was pretty hard to tell that kid.
Yeah.
His little one was gone, and uh, I never had to. Other than that, we had a kid that father died, and we sent him back. We had one. Some congressman had a hissy fit about people that weren't 18 in the combat theater, and so we did a scrub. We had one soldier in 108th Brigade that wasn't 18 years old. He was 17. Had to find him, and we had to get him back to Kuwait, and he had to sit there till he turned 18, and then we brought him back forward. But the genius of the NCOs, because when we were, I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep telling stories until you tell me to stop talking. When we got attached to the Marines and we're up in Iraq, their supply system, all their stuff is different than the Army's. There's just probably a flaw in the governmental logistics system, but they used something different than we did. And so we couldn't order parts, we couldn't order anything through them. And some NCOs, just genius guys, figured out a workaround. And they figured out, we did all that, and they got some help from some warrant officers to make it reality. But these NCOs told me about this, and I'm like, is that gonna work? Sir, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. And the chief told me, he goes, sir, I think it's gonna work. These guys are like rock. I made sure they got MSMs, and 32nd double AMC tried to tell me no because they were E5s. Well, we're not getting, the sergeant major goes, we're not giving an MSM to an E5. And I go, oh yes we are. Oh yes we are. I'm going to the general. We're gonna get these guys. I got them. I got 2 E5s, an MSM, both of them. And they came up with this idea because the Marines were flying a C-130 every day with mail and crap. They were flying it up to them. So we had a guy still in Kuwait, some logistics dude would get on that bird every day that was coming to where we were at, and they had all of our stuff done on a disk, computer disk of some sort. I'm not a computer guy, so but they'd pass that thing off to this guy. He'd fly it back to Kuwait. Well, they'd run it through our systems. They get the supplies and whatever the pieces or parts for stuff we needed in theater. The Marines would load it in that C-130, and the next day or whenever we got them, we'd fly them back up and we'd have a truck sitting there waiting, or whatever battery needed this or that. They'd show up, and they automated this system, and it was all like courier to make these, because we couldn't get the stuff through the Marines. Stuff like chow and ammo, it's armies, and some of our vehicles are different. They're flying around in Cobras. Uh, some of the vehicles are the same, Hummers and things like that, but Patriot specific stuff, we couldn't get it. We could not get anything. And these guys figured out a workaround and made it happen. And so I don't remember who the 32nd Sergeant Major was. Oh yeah, I remember his face now. I can't remember his name, but he was like, "We are not giving MSMs to E5s. They can't have an MSM." And I go, "Sir, this E5, I had another one, a female, RS1, Brigade S1, a major, didn't get to theater for something happened. It took him 6 weeks to get there. This E5 female was running our freaking entire Brigade S1 shop by herself. Personnel replacements, doing all this stuff. Sorry. And I go, she's running this whole operation that normal a major does. She's an E5, and I got her an MSM too. So, but it was just fighting. Some of the just, oh, they can't do that. Oh, you can't do this. You can't do that. There are some smart people in the Army that can figure something out where it can be done legally.
Oh,
So,
for sure. For sure. What was it like to be a leader? Did you find it easy to lead, or was that something that you struggled with?
um, I probably as a lieutenant, other than Sergeant Quirk steering me right. Uh, I probably didn't come in the Army as a great leader. I did ROTC. I just, now I was in infantry. They're not. Well, I'll get in more trouble. They're not the sharpest sticks in the pile. So I shouldn't say that, but there's some good people out there. But it's they just hump rocks, and they're tough people. I mean, they are some tough young men. And I had that Bill O in when I was at S3 Air, because and you heard stories about him, and he was our commander for 18 months. and he went to Fort Benning to stand up the 3rd Ranger Battalion. The stuff he did for us as officers stuck in my head the rest of my life. He goes, he had a thing, he called it the Omega Platoon, the officer platoon. And we did every mission, every infantry mission that any of those companies or platoons would have to do, any platoon would have to do. He was our platoon leader. The battalion XO was our first sergeant, or our squad, our platoon sergeant, and he made the company command, or the company commanders in the battalion were the squad leaders, and their first sergeants were like assistant squad leaders. Well, it was all officers, so it would have been just the company commanders. And he took us. We did like, we called them Omega missions, and we would go out for 2 or 3 days at a time with our ruck on our back and weapons, and he would walk in detail how to do an ambush, how to do a rally point, how to do a recon, how to do, and he would take us. I mean, I was like, holy smokes, I'd never been through anything like this in my life. Like low crawling for hours with a ruck on your back and up and down a field, weapons training, all kinds of stuff, radios. I had to carry a spool of wire on one of these things. I was a wire guy running wire between the fighting positions, and but he trained us, and the standards were so freaking high, and it was like, and it was unforgiving. I mean, we had. Uh, I got punished by him one time, and it was painful. I was setting up we were doing EIB training, EIB testing, and I was responsible to set up the 12-mile road march, and the 12-mile road march was uphill. I mean, he didn't there was no slacking. We weren't going to do like 12 miles. It was up Arctic Valley Road, which is uphill for 6 miles up and then 6 miles back. So, but you were uphill for 6 miles with all your equipment. And I'd done the measurements and stuff with my truck. I didn't, I didn't verify. And I was a lieutenant. And the road march was like 100 or 200 yards too long because he personally measured it because had some soldiers not making it. I go, it could be because going 6 miles uphill and then 6 miles back, but he measured it, and the course wasn't accurate. So he called me over and he goes, this course is too long. And and he goes, you owe me a 12-mile full equipment road march. That was his punishment for everything. You owe me a 12-mile full equipment road march. You're going to do it Saturday. Check in with the staff duty officer. Show him the map of where you're going to go. You'll have 50 pounds of equipment on your back. You won't no weapon because it's on a Saturday. He goes, you're going to have 50 pounds of equipment. He's going to weigh your ruck. And the staff dude is going to come out and check on you every so often, every 30 minutes, every hour, 45 minutes. He's got your map of where you're going. And you owe me a 12-mile full equipment road march. And I went, no. So, yes, sir. And I had to do the same road march, the 12-mile up, 6 miles up Arctic Valley, and then 6 miles back down. It was freaking snowing. It was like it was horrible. And he goes, nope. We had he had something else. He had like a Omega guide on. The junior lieutenant in the battalion had to bring that to every officer function. And back in those days, officer calls on Friday nights. It's the same thing at NCO clubs and stuff. They were very robust. And this kid took leave or something and didn't have somebody else bring that guide on to the thing. He got back and he goes, you owe me a 12-mile full equipment road march. It was always the same punishment. Show up on staff duty on Saturday morning with your map and execute. He was like, but he goes, and he came to see me because because I've been the last guy punished, and I go, "Oh, you're gonna do it, buddy. It ain't fun." And he goes, "But I was on leave," and he go, "They don't care. That's the standard." He would check our rucksacks, and you must have this things in your rucksack when we were doing these Omega missions. And I covered my company commander one time, and he thanked me a million times. He got in trouble later and ended up he got because he lost a bunch of tools and stuff. But he only had 2 pairs of socks in his ruck, and they're supposed to have 3. And the socks don't weigh anything, but that's not the point. The point is you're supposed to have 3 pairs of rucks. There's 3 pairs of socks in your ruck, and so he's going. I always brought extra everything because I was afraid of being wrong. Because the punishment, you owe me a 12-mile full equipment road march. So, but because of spending that 18 months with him in that infantry battalion, where the standards this was the standard, this is the only standard that it isn't here. Good enough. That ain't good enough. It's the here. That's the standard or above it. You can't, there's nothing accepted below. Or you owe me a 12-mile full equipment road march. And so I got to my uh, first air defense unit, and I walked in with my almost skinhead high and tight, and I got to tell you, my battalion commander had one of those horseshoe hair, bald on top and had a horseshoe. I go, man, I told my wife, I go, man, if we put our heads together, we'd have a whole head of hair. I used to tell her that, but the Brigade XO's like, where are you from? Because I hadn't been in air defense, and now I'm in 101st. Sir, I was in first 172nd Light Infantry Brigade. I was on jump status. I was an airborne paratrooper in Alaska. He's like, what kind of haircut is that? I mean, it was like just, but because of that environment I grew up in for those first 3 years, I think it carried me through the rest of my time. I know that I always went back to that. This is the standard. It isn't here. It can be here, but it's nothing below that. That's what it is. And I had they tried to send me to the Pentagon one time, and coming out of, I think I was coming out of Schofield Barracks, 25th Infantry Division, and whoever was there at the time, because they go, oh, you guys need time in the Pentagon. You're a major. You haven't been. You got to spend time in the Pentagon. You haven't been there. And the guy, whoever was running the air defense stuff at the Pentagon, he looked at my file, and he told the assignment officer, he goes, I don't want any of those shorehead guys. They were trying to send 2 of us there. I don't want any of those 2 shorehead guys here. They're knuckle dragging Neanderthals. They don't know nothing. They're never coming here. And I went, praise the Lord. I went from 25th. I think that's how I ended up in the 25th Infantry Division. Maybe it was between Campbell. My next division was the 25th. I didn't have to go to the Pentagon. And as you get older, they stop looking at you because they think you don't understand the building. You're not going to be able to make anything happen. And they look away, slip away. So
So here's a question I've been asking. I can't imagine what you might answer, but if you get the call tomorrow and you got to report back to the Army, what unit are you going to? Are you going to go back to commanding the 94th, or where are you going to report to?
well, we sure liked the Pacific. We were in the Pacific Theater Ops for 11 years. When in my retirement thing with the branch, I said, I got 10 years at Fort Bragg. I got 11 years in the Pacific. I was in for 31 years. I go, the other 9 years was just like going to school here, there, here and that. But I spent 11 years in the Pacific and 10 years in 18th Airborne Corps. I include the 101st, but I go, that's all I know. And uh, somebody asked me that the other day. They go, can they recall generals? And I go, nah, I guess they could. I know of one that did in my life that got recalled, and they called him back to be the chief of staff of the army because nobody would work for whoever was the current SecDef, and he said he was already retired. He's a special operations guy. Uh, I can see his face. I can't remember his name, but he he said they called him. He was out on his working on his ranch. He got a pickup truck throwing some hay bales, and they called him and said, "Hey, this is somebody from the Pentagon. We want you to, Secretary. We want you to be the chief of staff of the army." And he goes, "Who is this?" They called him 3 times. He just kept hanging up on anything. Quit. That's bullshit. I'm not. What are you talking about? Boom. And it finally found out it was real. He ended up doing it because we needed him, and we were going through some. We did some strange stuff with uh, the cohort, not the cohorts, but some of the, oh, you're going to go be in combat 1 year, you're going to be back 5 years. And, it never worked out for the Army. Aviation brigades were there every other year and people are cycling, the guard's going to go, once every 5 years. And it just didn't work out that way because we didn't have a big enough Army at that time. But, uh, I loved my time in the Pacific. I'd do anything. I don't think my body would take a parachute jump. I've had some. Uh, the VA knows me well. I've had a hip replaced in the last year. I've had knee, ankle, and what'd you do in the Army? Paratrooper. Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is. But I wouldn't trade it. If I was in a wheelchair right now, I wouldn't trade the time I spent at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, because the in division time, the Corps kind of a little. Uh, they're part of they're at Bragg. There's some of that environment there, but it's not the same as being in the 82nd Airborne Division. And there's no division like it. And it's our division commander. When I was a battalion commander, would always say, when the president dials 911, the phone don't ring at Fort Hood, Texas. It rings at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And with aircraft, I sat through so many of those briefings. With enough aircraft, you can put the entire division on the ground in 29 hours with aircraft. Now, of course, we don't have those aircraft, that many aircraft, but uh, I'd love to go back to Bragg. I I'd be a civilian at Bragg. I got offered a couple of civilian jobs coming out of the Army, which would have been perfect for me. They just where they were at. Uh, the first job I got offered was, hey, do you want to come to Camp Casey and run the Battle Sim Center? I would love to run the Battle Sim Center. I love. I've been to Fort Casey. I know exactly where it is. I love Korea, but I got a wife and we rescue Great Danes. I got 4 Great Danes. I go, no Korea. I said, can I live on post? No, you have to live in the community. And I go, there's no Korean's going to rent me a house unless he's looking at my dogs for meat. They're not going to rent me a house in Korea. So I passed that one up. I got offered uh, to run the Battle Sim Center in Germany, someplace in Germany. And they called me and said, hey, this is going public tomorrow. If you want this job, we're going to put your name against it. And I go, can I live on post? No. I go, I got a wife and 4 Great Danes, and I'd like to be married, because running a Battle Sim Center, you're not going to get to come home a lot. I mean, you're going to be busy all the time. Korea would have been really, but Camp Casey, man, they're like up by the DMC. They go, you're never going to get to come home. I said, no, I can't do that either. So uh, I did work as a Department of Army civilian for 6 years up in Stratcom for SMGCR Strat. I never was a sharp stick about space and stuff. Uh, Had to learn a lot, but and some of the guys I worked with would come through there. They were the CGs. Formica was a CG when I first got the job. He's an artilleryman, but he was running SMGCR stat. He would always look at me. He goes, turn around. You got a ponytail. Yes, sir. You got a beard. Yes. Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm in a band too, sir. I play bass in a band. But, he always liked me. He always liked me. And then some of the air defense guys came through. They were like, why would you do this? And I go, I don't want to be a contractor. I don't want to move to Huntsville. Uh, so, and I can do this from here. So, but I, I'd go back to Bragg. I'd go back to the Pacific. I can't parachute jump, but I'd work at Indo-Sync Paycom.
Amen. Amen. But you're not going to jump to the SMJP again, huh?
No. I was telling somebody about that the other day. I go, you'd have to see this thing. Some of those things were longer than the soldier wearing them. I go, unbelievable the stuff that those young men did, and you can't even rig them until you're on the aircraft and flying. They got to stand up the rest of the jump, or the rest of the time on the aircraft. You can't walk with them. You can't. That's that. But I don't know who came up with that idea, but it was a good one. We had a and I don't know how much time you got, but we had uh, we had uh, a Avenger burn in uh, when I was a battalion commander. The airborne test board was doing one on. They were trying to do some kind of new. They were testing something, and we had a catastrophic failure. And this thing, uh, it wasn't rigged right, and as it went out of the aircraft, uh, everything just started snapping, and that thing ended up like this, coming to the ground, and it's just the way it was rigged. They were trying to do something different, and I think they were doing I think they were doing it with a C-17, and trying to working with that. And this thing just nosedived into Sicily. I mean, catastrophic, just toast, and nothing left of it. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. So I called Fort Bliss and said, hey, we need another Avenger, and this thing, what? What? You guys, you stop. You can no longer drop Avengers. You can't drop them anymore. And I go, sir, that's not gonna work. I went and talked to the G3, and I said, my branch is really upset about this. They're telling me we can't drop Avengers anymore. And he goes, can't do airborne operations, can't be in the division. And I go, oh, we're in the division. We're in the division. See ya. I'll never come back again. But about 6 months later, Bliss was calling me wanting parts off of that Avenger. And I go, "Uh, we never got it back. I mean, it was totally destroyed. And they were hounding me to the point of people are yelling at me over the phone. And I went to see the guy. He was the discom commander who was charged, and I said, sir, I need help. He goes, and I had all the paperwork from the Avenger, and he goes, that thing is 100% gone. And I go, I know that, sir, but they're telling me we want the 50 cal. They want all these, they wanted stuff off of that. He goes, there's nothing there. He goes, give me that. I don't know who he called at Fort Bliss, but they never called me back. So he was like, that's, but yeah, just Fort, yeah. I love Fort Bliss. That's my home. It's kind of Bragg's really my home. I cycled through there for schools, uh, but they had that the I guess the thought process of school and the branch versus the paratroopers, and even the 101st guys. They're out doing different things. They're doing kind of alien things to them, sling loading and heavy dropping and jumpers jumping out of aircraft, and it's just different from what they're used to. I got to tell you a story. I went to see uh, I'm the DCG of U.S. Army Pacific, and my boss he got invited to this uh, what's it called? Some kind of war games thing, It was in China in briefings and stuff, and they had like 40 people from 40 nations coming to see this, and it was going to be an airborne operation. And he goes, I can't go because they won't take a 3-star, even though they invite you, you can't go. The U.S. won't send you. So he goes, I can send you. Do you want to go see this airborne operation? I go, sure, sir. I'll go watch a Chinese airborne operation. And we got out there, and they did all kinds of stuff. But we're standing out there, and they do it completely different than us. And they put the paratroopers out first, and then they drop heavy drops on them. And we're at the back. I'm at the briefing going, oh, we don't do it that way. We put the heavy equipment because soldiers could get hit. It's in the dark. It's not. And they go, oh no, someone could steal the equipment. And I go, not if you're coming right behind it. Anyway, but I watched these. It was really windy that day, and the paratroopers came first. They put these kids out of the aircraft, and they just went. And there was the too high of winds. They were doing the show because there's 40 countries down there watching them. These paratroopers, they just went off into oblivion. They went over in like this mountain range area. I go, oh man, those kids are going to be damaged. None of them even landed on the drop zone. And then tight formations, any of the things that we do, there's like one aircraft at a time drops. He flies away, the next aircraft comes, drops. And they dropped their heavy equipment, which did hit the drop zone, because I think they adjusted when they saw the paratroopers fly away to the mountains. And I go, man, I would hate to be any of those kids. And there's no way that those soldiers are ever going to touch this equipment. It just landed on the drop zone. So we watched it hit the drop zone. They put us in trucks and took us right over to like a area like they used to do for capstone class and stuff. The Geartex over on Sicily with all the static displays and stuff. We get over there, and they got this equipment sitting there, and these paratrooper guys are standing there. They're not dirty at all. They're standing there with this equipment's got no dirt on it, and they had these Chinese reporters are standing there with me and going, look at these soldiers. Look. Yeah. And I go, this is this equipment that just got dropped in that heavy drop with the parachute jump? Yes, that's them. And I go, how could that be? I'm just sitting there, and they're like, no, this is them. And I go, but the vehicles aren't dirty. The soldiers aren't. I saw them go. Those kids are in the mountains somewhere. Those are not the kids standing on this. Oh, yes, they are. And I was like, I'm just going to shut my mouth. But I'm like, this is all just a big scam, and they got all these people from all these different countries. And it was just, they did do some stuff that I thought was interesting. I mean, they do a lot of electronic warfare stuff when they're attacking. We got to watch maneuver operations. We were out there all day watching them do different things. It was all a show, but they do everything with like electronic warfare stuff before, they're like jamming radios, trying to jam equipment and stuff before they attack. Maybe I don't think we were doing so much of that when I was in, but I'm sure we're doing it now with all the UAVs and everything else flying around. But anyway, side story: Chinese airborne operation. I got to witness it.
Awesome.
Aha! They're nothing like 82nd Airborne Division soldiers. They cannot land and fight.
Can you imagine thinking back to emptying a C-141 on one pass on Sicily drop zone in the middle of the night? 0200 to 0220. Block time. We're going to take a 50-minute nap of the Earth flight. We're going to make one pass over Sicily, 6 aircraft in an offset trail formation. It's really wild to think about the things that we did and were willing to do for our country.
The sky's full of paratroopers. It's just amazing. They, in the battalion, I always got called, those large package weeks, I'd get called like afternoon. Hey, we need 100 paratroopers we never got the first turn. We need 120 paratroopers for the second turn, the 2 a.m. turn. And it was like, We already had batteries that were with the brigades doing their thing, but we always had to fill aircraft every night, and it was always the 0200 turn, and it was like, okay, thank you. Maybe we have another, but it's amazing the stuff that I saw there. Uh, I always liked when they did those capstone Jertex. We go out there. And they had all the static displays. They're bringing all these flag officers that are coming through, new 1 stars, and I actually got to go through Bragg and do it when I was there, which was really cool to come back. But they put them all in these trucks, and they take them out, and they first watch. They got 810s coming in, just chewing up Sicily and doing all kinds of stuff, and they got stuff blowing up, and. And then here come the heavy drops, and then here come and these guys are all sitting there with nods on, watching. People that don't ever wear them and stuff. Man, these are great. You can use these deer hunting. This is great because we did a practice the night before the flag officers were there with the local community people, business owners and stuff. Man, they were just like chatty Cathy's in the back of those trucks when they put those night vision goggles on. Man, these are the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. Well, you can't have them, And we did a rehearsal the day before. Uh, we had the flags there, and it was like a 3-day thing doing that capstone. And I was out there once with General Petraeus's brigade, First Brigade, 504th Parachute Infantry was doing the. And his standards were like you had to have the top button of your BDU's button. I mean, there couldn't be anything. You were inspected and your hands, everything, 100% camouflage. I'm surprised we didn't have camouflage our teeth. And I mean, it was like uh, we go through this thing, and there was one air defense general coming through, and General Casey, who ended up being the chief of staff of the Army. He's a 1-star, and I had worked for him in Germany. Uh, when we went to Operation Joint Endeavor, and he was the Core G3, and so they said if you know any of these people, just sound off, and we'll put them at your table. So I said I know General Casey, and I know this other general. I won't say his name. He was an air defender, and I'm already in trouble probably about Fort Bliss comment. So we're sitting there, and you have dinner with them, and the 82nd Course comes in. And they're doing their there we go, here we go. And then we had a dinner and stuff. And Casey, he vaguely remembered me. I'm only a lieutenant colonel, and I'm talking the other air defense guy he's looking at me, and he just keeps looking at me. And we're finishing dinner, and of course is doing getting ready, and Petraeus is getting ready to make a speech about what they're going to see that night, and he's looking at me, and he goes, "Did you want to come here?" That's exactly what he told me. He goes, "Did you want to come here?" And I go, "Sir, it's the 82nd Airborne Division." Absolutely. And he just kind of looked at me with a puzzled look in his eye. Why anyone would want to come here? Because you're sitting there, you've got full camouflage, everything. Oh, yes, sir. And I was flabbergasted by that comment. Did you want to come here? Yes, sir. I'm actually a jump master, sir. Thank you very much. So, but
I love it. I love it. Did you have any conspiracies or crazy things happen when you were a commander? I remember one time we like lost a plugger, or we lost
oh,
something
I got
something.
a couple of stories like that. They had that that was scary for me. They had one of the infantry battalion commanders came in my office, and he goes, "Hey, John," and he was a great guy. I cannot remember his name. He broke his femur on a jump, and it just, I mean, it torched him for the rest of his. I mean, he finished his battalion command, but I don't think he won anything after that. His leg was. I mean, he really broke his leg. It was a compound fracture, bone sticking out, and I little shorter guy. His last name started with an S. That's all I can remember. But he walks in my office and he goes, "Hey, I just want you to know," he goes, "we found this plugger out in the field. It had been run over by a vehicle." And he's showing it to me and he goes, "We ran the serial number and it's one of yours." And I went, "Oh, oh, are you kidding me?" He goes, I, I'm just being a fellow battalion commander. Here it is. Whatever you do with it, we didn't report it. I'm just giving it to you." And he walked out. I go, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." So I get our guy in there and I go, "Whose freaking plugger is this?" It belonged to a second lieutenant. And so I get him in my office with his commander, and I won't say his name either, but I go, "Do you see this? Do you know this plugger's missing?" Uh-huh. His eyes are getting really big. He goes, "Yes, sir." And I go, "And you didn't report this?" I'm kind of personally, I'm glad he didn't, because we found it. But uh, he's he said, I I had it. He'd gotten out of a vehicle or something, set it on the hood of the Humvee. It was at nighttime. They were doing some stuff on a map, and he didn't grab it, and he drove off. And he realized later that night he didn't have it, and of course he panicked. He didn't tell anybody. He went back over there with his driver. They were driving all over the place trying to find this thing, and he never found it. And I go, "That was 2 days ago. It was 2 freaking days ago." And he goes, "Well, sir, I was hoping we'd find it." And I go, "Oh, we found it. Some infantry battalion commander found it." And I said, "This could have been really bad for the whole unit." I said, "Oh man, I don't even remember what I did to him. I think I should have told him, 'You owe me a 12-mile full equipment road march.' That's what I should have told him.
50 pounds.
That's what I should have told him. But he he later on, when he got promoted to first lieutenant, he had some other he wanted somebody to come promote him outside the battalion. We jumped onto Sicily, and I had a bad landing on the flight landing strip. I hit my ass. I chipped my tailbone, and I could hardly move. I'm like, I get up and I'm like, "Oh," I mean, just knocked the wind out of me, because I mean, I hit that flight landing strip, and I had to climb he wanted to get promoted on that tower, that watchtower they had out of Sicily. I'm trying to crawl up those steps going, "Oh, oh," and the ADC, my boss, is up at the top. So I crawled up there and I'm just sitting there going, "Ugh." I just wanted to get out of there. And so we did. He got promoted to first lieutenant, and we got down there. I had to stand around. And I told my driver, I was like, "Get me out of here! Get me out of here!" He took me to basically, they said I chipped my tailbone and I jammed something. He goes, "I'm just going to stick a couple of shots in your ass, just." And I go, "Okay." It was supposed to be like a muscle relaxer. But the bosses coming to do a run with us, 4 mile run. That was Wednesday night. It was Friday morning. He was coming down to run with our battalion. And I'm like, "Oh my God." I mean, I could hardly move. And we had to go out. I mean, I told him before we went, "Sir, I'm just telling you, we're gonna make this run, but I'm just telling you, I had a bad landing on Wednesday night, and I'm trying to make excuses for myself, but we went out, we did the 4 mile run, and it was the most painful thing I ever had done in my life. And but luckily, that's all it was: chipped tailbone and a couple of bruises and stuff. So, but I broke my leg once at Bragg. And when McNeil was the commander, he had one of the aviation battalion commander called me up and goes, "Hey, I'm getting my master parachuter swings. I got a C5 jump. And we're having a big barbecue and everything." And I go, "I ain't got nothing going on." So I said, "All right, I'll come." And you know how those C5s do? They like dropping out of the sky because they can't fly slow enough to put out paratroopers. And they put us out. They just had redone Sicily with the drainage and stuff. and we got put out. Him and I got put out right by the edge of the wood line, and the winds were kind of. I mean, I was trying to steer away from not ending up in a tree. We were that close, and I ended up in one of those drainage ditch things because I wasn't. It's jumper error. You're not always paying attention. You're trying to stay away from you're watching the trees, and I ended up down in this hole where this drainage thing was and snapped my leg. It was just fractured, and I'm like, oh no, this is not good. And it was real close to the end of my command, like in the last 30 days. And so I get out and I get my chute and everything, and I'm waving at the medic, and they get over there, and I go, I think I broke my leg. What? I think I broke my leg. So they get me in the ambulance. I'm going, I'm glad none of my soldiers are here. This is terrible. And that medic took my boot off, and my ankle went because it had fractured just above the ankle bone, ankle joint. And he took that combat boot off, and now I had like a watermelon attached to the bottom of my leg. And I go, that's probably a bad idea. But I get to the hospital, and they go, well, we got to cut your BDUs off. And I go, they're like $38. You're not cutting my paint. You're not cutting my BDUs. I go, I got 4 kids. I got a wife and 4 kids. I can't afford. I'm not buying no more BDUs. So, well, they go, well, you got to get them off. And they go, we've got these. They were like blue and white checkered plastic hot pants, shorts. And they go, well, you can put these on. And I go, are you kidding me? It's either your BDUs or these shorts. So I go, all right, put these little shorts on, and they're Hoochie Mama shorts, and they're plastic. And so I'm sitting there, and they're doing the X-ray stuff. Well, my wife comes walking by. She's in the hallway with one of our kids going to the clinic, and she's like, "What are you doing in here?" And I go, "Uh, uh, I think I broke my leg." And she reamed my driver because he didn't call her or tell her. And I go, hey, there's nothing you can do about it. So, but I was when we did the battalion change of command in '99 in June. I was in a walking cast by then, and I went to one of those Korean shops off post, and she cut my BDUs and put like Velcro on them. She goes, as soon as you get that cast off, we can take the Velcro out and put your pants back. You'll never know what happened. I went, that's what I want. So when we did the change of command for me leaving command, uh, it was over there by the museum. And we made it. It was kind of overcast and stuff. And I already told the boss. I said, "Sir, I can't troop the line." I go, and he goes, "Just skip it. The ceremony will be shorter." And I go, "Okay," because I couldn't make the loop around. And so we sit there, and we made a weather call that morning. We're going outside, and uh, well, I went inside the museum for they do a little award ceremony or something. Then you come back outside. It had poured rain, and the soldiers are standing out there. Everybody's just soaking wet, and then we're all getting soaking wet because we're out on. And one of my other battalion commander buddies comes up and he goes, "Well, how does it feel to make the last decision made in command be a bad one?" And I go, yeah." So we're all soaking wet. The CG's wife comes up to me and she goes, I've been to so many of these ceremonies. She goes, it finally stopped raining. She goes, I've been to all these ceremonies. She goes, your soldiers' uniforms all look brand new because they're soaking wet. The BDUs, she goes, I've never seen so, dark. They all look the same. And she goes, are they all new uniforms? And I go, no, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. They're not. They're just wet. They're just wet. So, but we did the ceremony. It was short because we stayed 10 minutes walking around the whole freaking battalion. But and then I went to the IG with my leg in a cast, and I went 5 months without a jump, and I go, I got the cast off, and I'm like, I'm jumping, and the guy's over there going, sir, you can't jump, and I go, we don't have a doctor here saying I can't jump, so I go, I'm not going to lose status, and I go, I'll jump a core, and they had those ankle boot things you had to wear. They go, you're lucky to you're probably gonna get your leg broke again jumping with those things. Those things are terrible because your leg won't bend right. I go, I'm doing it. I went on like, uh, I think I jumped with the band, and they're barely airborne. So don't repeat that. That's probably I'll hear about that too. So, uh, but I think I jumped with the 80-second band. I found somebody that was doing something like no rucks, no anything. I just got out. I just got to get out the aircraft, and then I got 30 more days to do it again. So, but anyway,
Great times, right? Great times. You know, you said earlier you definitely do it all again if you had the opportunity. What's one thing that you would like to leave for those that love you that maybe come behind? Maybe some kind of a statement or something that your grandkids or your kids might listen to one day. Do you have some kind of a John Seward inspirational message that you would give the team? You know, or do you have
uh,
some kind of thought like that?
well, we got 13 grandkids. I got 4 daughters, and like I said, they're all either married or we're in the military, except for that Navy couple there. They're in the military. It's just Navy. It's a Navy. Still different. They're very intelligent. And the my daughter does naval intelligence, and she worked on ships for a while. She'd call us and go, pirates trying to take the ship or whatever, and Marines shooting up people, and her husband is an underwater geologist. He did mapping for SEAL operations, and he's not a SEAL, but he did all their underwater mapping and stuff. And now he does unmanned submersible stuff. It's all That's the only thing he can say. It's unmanned submersibles. So, but uh, I I would hope, and I tell people all the time. I go, uh, when my kids are standing at my funeral, or my grandkids, they're not going to say, oh, he was a great bass player, or he spent a lot of time at the American Legion, or they're gonna remember if I was at baseball games and saw hockey games, and band concerts and stuff like that, because I think that stuff's important. I got 13 grandchildren, and I'm from a family of women, very very few boys in my age group. But I had 4 daughters. All of my cousins all they had was girls, boys, and I've got 7 boys out of that 13 and grandchildren. Uh, I would hope that and the troopers that come behind us, that they find us faithful, that faithful to the country, faithful to the mission, uh, faithful to them. I mean, veterans are important. Uh, uh, that they just find us faithful. I guess that's what I would say. So,
Amen. Amen. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Was there anything that you thought I would ask that I didn't, or a story that you think you just got to tell before we close this thing out?
well, for you personally, because you jump mastered me on Alice pack versus the rucksack, is I want to clarify that I understand it's an Alice pack. They had that was Specialist Goldsberry. I don't know where he is in life, but he broke 2 of my ribs underneath the aircraft with a simultaneous exit, and his Alice pack hit me in the left side and popped 2 of my ribs. And one of the other times I had while I was in the division, it's hard on you when you're over 40. I'm telling you, I turned 40 in the division after my first year, maybe. I was probably 38. I probably turned 40 before I changed command going out. Uh, but it's hard on you. But no, I don't think so. I thought we'd talk about the division. I thought we'd talk about time in the Army, stuff we did. So I'm hopefully I didn't badmouth Fort Bliss too much. It's a great place. It's just a different place. It's a different place.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, sir. I would love it as part of the tradition if you would find a way to maybe salute and sign out. Something like that. That just trying to capture that kind of thing. Kind of a little final ending, and then we'll close it there. That sound good?
Yep. You need me to stand up?
It's up to you. However you feel comfortable. You definitely can stay seated. That's just fine. I've saluted a million times seated in different situations. It's totally good.
Brigadier General retired John Seward signing off.
Oh, I love it, sir. Airborne. Thank you, sir. All right, wave goodbye, everybody. Don't go anywhere, sir.
All right.
Marshall in the middle.